Welcome back. I'm Kim Bailey. She's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec. Today, we are joined by a guest from the US, and that is John Gates. Now, let me give you a little bit of background on John, and then we'll launch into our conversation because I know that this is going to be of huge interest to many of you who are listening. We've had a bit of a build-up of having John on the podcast, and I know in just the conversation we've had before we started recording that he's going to have some answers for you. John Gates is an author and founder of Salary Coach, where he helps C-suite executives and senior leaders negotiate higher compensation packages without risking their job offers or future relationships. John's unique approach, born from his extensive experience in corporate recruiting, consistently helps his clients secure 10 to 20% more in their pay packages, even in challenging job markets. John's journey began when a sudden job loss led him to a low-paying role at a temporary agency, struggling to support his young family. The turning point came when he realised the power of leverage during his own salary negotiations, securing a substantial offer from Capital One despite initial fears. Through his journey, John developed a unique approach to help senior-level professionals navigate salary negotiations with confidence using what he calls the Salary Coach method. So welcome, John. Lovely to have you with us today.
Yep.
Thanks so much, Kim. It's great to be with you.
We did send John some questions, as you all know that we do, to start off our conversations. So the first one we sent was, when is the right time in an interview to start negotiation? And my rider with that was, can you start before the interview to determine if attending the interview is in your best interests?
Yes. Well, it all depends on how you define negotiation. So I think that very often, like, you're going to apply to a position. And in today's modern world, most of the time when you apply, you're asked what your salary expectation is. And it's my view, my opinion, that the negotiation begins the very first time you're asked about what your pay expectation is. It may not be a negotiation at that point, but you start to position yourself at this step. Then at some point, the phone's going to ring, people are going to call you, they're going to respond to your resume or your CV, or they're going to respond to your LinkedIn profile and they're going to say, Kim, I liked what I saw on the paper and I would love to talk to you about this amazing opportunity, but first, tell me more about your pay expectation. Mm-hmm. And these kind of screening questions happen early in the process. And so a frequent mistake I think that people make is they begin negotiating very heavily at this early step before they have a lot of leverage to do so. Like in that screening call, it's important to remember that the person on the other end of the Zoom call or the phone call, they're the only one that has seen you at this step. The hiring leadership, the selection team, they don't know who you are yet. And so that person can take your hard work and set it aside and no one will care at this step. So people realize this and they tend to then answer that question lowballing themselves at this early step. So you can position yourself at this point for a good offer at the end without doing that to yourself. And there are specific steps and things that you should do at this early stage to avoid the pitfall that I just mentioned. Yeah. Don't give a number in a phone call that is way too low, because then it becomes difficult to recover from that. I'll just share a little insider tip. So this is an early breadcrumb for those people that are listening right now. Mm-hmm. The right answer is not to give a number during this early process. The right answer, I think, is to respond with a range.
Yep.
Because the screener is just looking to see, is there overlap between what you want and what they can offer? Yep. And if you can satisfy the screener with a range to the point where they think they can get you, there's a good chance they can get you, then they might schedule you with a short-staffed selection team. Yeah. And if you're going in with a range and you're not stuck with a number, you can move up in your own range then along the way.
So in that sense, then we need to get people to think differently about themselves. I know from my experience that people put a number on themselves. This is what I need. It's like selling a car. You know, you see cars out on the side of the road with a sign on them that says this much money, and you think, well, that's obviously what they need. It's not what the car's worth, but it's just what they need. So do we now need to educate people to think more about the range of what they'll take rather than my value or the value that I see in jobs advertised is X dollars, and so that must be what I have to ask for, rather than let's just think about a range. And as I say it, I'm thinking a range would be far easier to live with, because you're not so fixated on the dollar that I must have. You know, if that dollar amount is in the range, even if it's the lower point of the range, then you still know that if all else fails and you get the bottom of the range to start with, then it's okay. But if you put that single amount in, there is, as you say, there is nowhere. You can't say, oh, yeah, well, I want this amount, and then when you get there, say, oh, but I've thought about it, I actually want more. You know.
Yes. Once you give them a number, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, a lot of my experiences says, how do we determine that range? You know what I mean? Like, what sort of things we take into account to decide the range? Is it what's the minimum I can live with? Is it my worth or what I bring to the organization? Is it what the market? Is it all of these plus? I'd love to hear from you, John, about what you would consider.
That is such a great question. So I think there are a couple of things there. There's a number inside your own mind that you're probably not going to share, and that is your walk away number. And what number is too low for you to be able to pay your bills? And that should usually apply to salary and not so much the incentives. But $1 less than that, and you have to move out of your house because you can't make your house payment. You have to sell your car. You have to make major lifestyle changes. So you need to have that number in your mind. But I think the best range that comes to mind is really what other companies are willing to offer you. And so when you're in an active job search and people are calling you and they're describing what they're offering to you, you should ask them what their budget is for the position and let them answer that question for you, and then press in further to find out about the incentive plan that might be attached to that. And if you have a few of these kinds of conversations with people, then you can answer the question, well, I'm having discussions with other companies, and the range that I'm discussing with them for similar positions is A to B, including the incentives. And that's a really powerful way to not just respond to that question in an early stage, but a fairly accurate one that's hard to argue with. I've had a lot of people, as a recruiter, I ask that question all day long, right? And have had a lot of people say, well, I've done my research, I looked on this salary survey, or I dug in here or I dug in there, and this is what I think this job is worth in the market. And it's so easy for me to debunk that, because I can go back at the candidate and say, well, I've just spoken to 12 other people. We've also done our own research. This is where the market is for that. And so it's very difficult, though, for me to argue with what other companies are offering you. I can debunk a salary survey all day long, because as an HR person, I understand how the sausage is made in a salary survey. One person's director of IT is not scoped the same as another company's director of IT. There's a wide spectrum, and it just gets wider and wider and wider the more you get into leadership jobs, where there's only one of a particular role in a company.
We do have someone listening who, or will be listening when the podcast goes out, who is in a situation where he has been an entrepreneur, worked for himself for 30 plus years, and is now using the skills that he's developed, but in a very different industry to any of the industries he's worked in previously. This is an industry that he loves and has always wanted to be in. them, got an offer to come in and work for them part-time, and he really had no idea how to value his worth to the organisation, what the dollar amount, because he was just going to offer them a single dollar amount, should be. And because they, as an organisation, didn't know really what they wanted from him, they also didn't know what to offer. So
Yeah.
obviously he took the lead in that situation and said, well, these are the things that I think you need, and this is the things that I can offer, and this is the dollar amount that I think is appropriate for what I'm doing in terms of, and not even in terms of that industry, because it's not a role that is prevalent in that industry anyway. So it sort of had all of these edges of things, and so he just wondered, his question to us was, did I do the right thing in saying this dollar amount, so we can say, no, you should have said, should have been arranged.
Yeah. I think
But
in his case, probably a wide range would be the best approach, because companies are okay with getting a wide range, at least in the early stages. They'll want you to narrow that down as you continue the conversation. But this happens often. I was on LinkedIn the other day, and we were probably all lurking around LinkedIn, and we see different posts. This person posted this thing, how do you answer the salary requirements question? And there were like 5 different options listed, and only one of those options was the right answer. And I weighed in and I said, this is the right answer. Answer with a range, and any other answer is going to cost you money or opportunities. And so a perfect example I saw recently was somebody saying, well, when somebody calls me, I just say, I need a package worth $300,000. And if they go ahead, then I know I'm going to get that. It's aggressive for me. And if they don't, it's okay. But my answer is, what if they could have offered you 360?
Yeah.
Now they know they can get you at 300, and that's what the offer's going to be. This is what breaks my heart so much on this topic, is how many tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars people leave on the table without even knowing they're doing it. That happens all the time, just because they're not prepared to have these conversations. And that's what I like to do as a consultant, is get people through.
Is there also, flipping the coin in terms of the organisation, if you get someone who values themselves at 300 and you were prepared to go to 360, you take them at that, is there something in the back of your head that says there might have been someone better? There might have been someone who wanted more.
Oh, yes.
Could have found.
It's amazing how much people equate cost with competence. So it is interesting. I've seen this happen over and over and over again. I'll present a candidate to a hiring manager and I'll say, well, they're only making $125 at their current job when our job pays $220.
Yeah.
And the immediate reaction from the hiring manager is, I don't think they're strong enough.
Yeah. Could be very misguided.
They'll just assume this, right? So you have to be very, very careful. And this is where a range serves you well early in the process. And then once you're interviewing, now you're talking to the hiring manager, peers, other people involved in the process, and you have a much better idea of the impact you're going to make, the scope and challenges in the job and things like that. And then you can start to narrow things down some.
We'll take a break there in our conversation with John Gates. Gives you a starting point for thinking about your own salary negotiations. Join us for part 2 next week. For now, I'm Kim Bailey, she's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec.